Good morning, everybody. I'm going to call the meeting to order. It's 8:31 a.m. on November 15th, 2024. This is the Traffic Advisory Committee meeting for the town of Wakefield. Just ask that everybody remain muted unless you're invited to speak. That closed captioning is enabled. So to help us with that, just stay on mute. And this is being audio and video recorded and reposted. Item number 2, attendance. Myself, Joe Anderson. I see Dan and Lois Benjamin. Good morning. I see John Connors, Matt Keeley, Bill Renault. I think that's all we have for today. Town Administrator Steve Mayo is not able to attend, and I don't know if Joe Conway is joining us or not, but I don't see him on just yet. Item number 3, the Pledge of Allegiance. Dan, would you mind leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dan. Appreciate it. Item number 4, approval of the meeting minutes. Start with the July 26, 2024 meeting. Do I have a motion to approve those?
Motion to approve.
Moved by John Connors.
Second.
Seconded by Matt Keeley. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right. Item 4B, the meeting minutes from the October 4th, 2024 meeting. Do I have a motion on that?
Yes.
Moved by John Connors.
Second.
Seconded by Matt Keeley. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
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 All right. The meeting minutes from the July 26, 2024 and October 4th, 2024 meetings have been approved. Item number 5 is public engagement. This is an opportunity for any members of the public to express any comments or concerns or ask any questions to the Traffic Advisory Committee. I would just ask that if you have comments, questions, or concerns that have to do with an agenda item, just hold that for the specific agenda item so we can keep everything together. So if you have anything for us that isn't an agenda item, if you could raise your hand and then identify yourself by name and address. Paul, good morning. You're still on mute, Paul. If you could unmute and just state your name and address.
How's that? Is that better?
It is. Good morning.
Am I off mute?
You are. Yep.
Thank you. Yes, thank you for recognizing me. My name is Paul DeFranza. I live on Rear Walton Street in Wakefield, which is a small side road off of Walton Street, right next to the Linfield line. And as many of you probably already know, there's a whole bunch of construction going on, residential construction especially. The old rental equipment company. Then there's one across the street from there, which is a very large building. There's a new one going in almost directly across from Walton Street on the north side of Salem. And I believe there's another one or two also going up. And my question that I have sent 2 notes to now and it hasn't been responded to. Maybe it won't be yet. Maybe it's too early, but one was about 3 weeks ago. Is that it's not a traffic control issue per se. I think that's only going to be an issue around here, at least for me, at rush hour times when people are trying to leave their house or get home and have to deal with all the UPS drivers that are also coming back or leaving the facility. No, my concern was more the safety issue based on the narrowness of Walton Street itself. If you're familiar with the area, there's absolutely no parking on Salem Street from the Linfield line, and Walton Street is the last street on the Linfield, before Linfield. There's no parking on Salem Street all the way from the Linfield line to beyond Montrose Ave and up, is that Audubon Road or Pleasure Island Road? I don't remember which one is first. But anyway, there's nowhere to park. So with 1.5 cars assigned to each unit, Anybody that has any kind of a guest coming over probably, or a party being thrown, there's nowhere to park anywhere in that whole, I don't know, 2/10 of a mile area, except on Walton Street. It's not necessarily an issue during the warmer months, but in the winter months, with cars parked on both sides, it's going to be a safety hazard as far as I'm concerned. We have had issues where there was an emergency vehicle a few years ago that couldn't get down the street and had to rely on the horn for quite a while before somebody came out to clear their car. And this is not just one dead end street. Walton Street, while it is could be considered a dead end, as you might know, probably has, I don't know, 50 houses, 150 people or more living in it. And that's the only way in or out of that whole complex. I'm concerned about the safety issue more than anything else. People having personal issues that need to be attended to by EMTs or whatever, fire, police, so on and so forth. The traffic, as far as I'm concerned, is probably only an issue when it's rush hour time, morning and evening, which really doesn't bother me. I'm retired, and generally the UPS guys are pretty accommodating when it comes to leaving Walton Street and people want to head west onto Salem. Anyway, that's my particular issue that hasn't yet been addressed by the traffic control group. And I understand you guys are really busy with all the construction that's going on. I just wanted to put it out there orally now, besides 2 lengthy memos to the whole committee. That's all.
We appreciate that, Paul. So just for a little bit of background, we did consider this when those developments were presented to us, and we did have those concerns raised by some residents of Walton. The issue is where you restrict parking, right? It's going to be one side of the street or the other, and or restrict it altogether. And I think there needs to be a consensus among the residents there, which we didn't really have at the time. So we said we would revisit it if it became an issue. Some people have raised concerns about it, sporadically throughout the last couple of years. We did have the fire department look at it. I'm sure there are times where it's tough for them to get by, but they weren't overly concerned with the conditions that they saw when we did send them by there. But that doesn't mean that we can't restrict parking there. We said that after the fact, if those developments cause an issue for Walton Street, we would definitely look into restricting parking. But the issue is what side of the street, and can we get a consensus? So what I would suggest to you is to draft a letter with a petition signed by whoever's in favor of it from Walton Street and the abutters there, and submit it to us for consideration, so we know that there's adequate public support for a restriction there. Because the problem is going to be, if we just go off of a couple of residents, we're going to have the opposite concern that, I can't park in front of my house, and there's no parking on Walton Street now. So I would suggest to you to go out, talk to your neighbors, try to get a consensus on where we should restrict parking, from where to where, on what side, and then we'll definitely consider it. From that point, it has to go to town council, and they're the ultimate authority on signage in town. And that would be regulatory, so that's something they definitely need to approve. So those would be the next steps to getting that done.
I see. So you're saying then, in your estimation, or in fact, perhaps, Walton Street itself, especially the mouth of Walton Street that comes up to Salem Street, is wide enough for parking on both sides, plus room in the middle for an emergency wide vehicle or even a truck to get down Walton Street without a problem.
There's been times that it hasn't been a problem. I'm sure there's been a few times, depending on what type of vehicles are parked there and where, that it has been a problem. So again, if we're to restrict it to one side or the other, we need to know which side the abutters are in favor of. So I'd suggest to do that. And if you want to talk offline, we can definitely talk a little bit more about it, and kind of kick some ideas around on what we could do there.
I see. And I don't have a dog necessarily in the fight, because I live off of Walton Street. I live on rear Walton Street, which is very small, 3-house dead end, about 2/10 of a mile down from Salem. But what do you consider, and I mean this in all sincerity, what would you consider an emergency or something like that. In other words, why wouldn't the emergency preclude anybody else's feelings? And I'm not trying to override or step on anybody's toes that lives on Walton Street itself, especially up near the mouth. But does it mean that somebody has to have a medical issue or die or a fire
No,
before you guys can act on it?
It
What
doesn't
is the
mean that,
story?
but Paul, we do have a lengthy agenda, and I want to keep it open for other people that have other comments for us, so we can talk offline about it and come up with some type of a potential solution there. We don't need to wait for that, but we do want to do things so they don't displace the problem elsewhere. And there's a bunch of different considerations that we take into effect from a traffic and parking standpoint. And sometimes when we make one change, it exacerbates a problem in other areas. So we need to take all those things into consideration, not just restrict parking just because, you know, we think that that's the way to go right there, right now in that place. So we can talk offline and come up with something there.
Okay, and that's fine. I understand that. I don't mean to
That's fine, but
monopolize
I
the
do
thing,
wanna
but
get to some of the
will
other-
you reach out to me?
I think I have your email, so I'll reach out to you and we can set up a time to talk.
That'd be great. Thank you very much for your time.
Next we have Kathleen.
Good morning, Kathleen Tui, 8 Wiley Place. I just wanted to bring up a problem that seems to be getting worse. As we all know, when there's problems on 128, especially during rush hour, people cut through Wakefield. So that often causes a long queue on coming down Vernon Street, where Vernon meets Water at the traffic light. And then people can't make a right because the middle of town is backed up. So it backs up quite a ways. The issue is when people are at that light who actually want to make a left, they get the green light, traffic can't move. So they will cross the yellow line and drive down the wrong side of the road to make a left. The issue is if you're on Water Street and you want to make a right onto Vernon, you actually have a green arrow. So you come up Water Street, you want to make a right onto Vernon. This happened to me last week. And as I made a right onto Vernon Street, I nearly got into a head-on collision because this woman was completely on the wrong side of the road just because traffic wasn't moving for her green light. It's not the first time that this has happened to me. It's probably the scariest time, or the first time I've seen it. And I don't really know what the solution is, but it's pretty scary and it's very dangerous behavior. And I just don't know if there's something that TAC can do, or even just the police department with enforcement, putting somebody there looking for this. I don't know, but I just wanted to bring it up because it is an issue that does seem to be getting worse and could really be pretty scary to hit somebody head on like that.
No, that's a very fair concern. I've seen it myself. It's similar to a number of intersections in town, which is why when we have developers before us that propose, you know, substantial development that put our intersections into a worse level of service, it's something that I'm concerned about because of that type of aggressive driving and complete disregard for, you know, the rules of the road. So that is something that I think is more of a signal operation issue. And Bill, if maybe you have a little bit more on that, but I know that Bill and his team is working to upgrade the signals in that whole corridor there and have the operation be a little more efficient. But Bill, do you have any updates on that?
Yeah, I mean, so it's in our TIP project to update those signals, but I mean, you know, folks kind of, you know, drive on the wrong side of roads and head on collisions and stuff. That's, I mean, that no signal change is really going to change driver habit, right? I mean, that's something that it just kind of is what it is, right?
It is, no doubt, but I think that the signals in our downtown area definitely need to be running more efficiently. I think they're outdated, as you've identified. So I think that's going to definitely help operations there. I think the less queuing we have, and you know, the shorter the queuing, the less likely we'll have that aggressive driving. But
yeah,
it is
for sure. Yeah. So one of the things we're doing with the TIP project, so the downtown projects, we have 2 of them that are being state funded. They're all going to basically connect to each other and talk. So we're going to do the adaptive signal similar to what we have on Salem Street. So, I mean, that's definitely, going to improve the queuing for sure. So, I mean, we have that going on. So from that standpoint, I would expect to see some improvement.
And we have had directed patrols for that specific intersection in the past. I can renew that directed patrol. Unfortunately, the times that I see it happen the most are our peak times for traffic crashes, calls for service, crossing students at the Galvin. So it's kind of the same old story when we have traffic issues in town. It's right at peak hours, and that's when our offices are tied up the most, and they can't be everywhere at once. But we can definitely renew that directed patrol and see what we can do. It's when we're not there, though, people go back to their old habits. So that's kind of the short answer on that one. Bill, while I have you on that topic, though, I would like to reiterate that I think we need to look into a protected phase for Main and Water. I think the turning movements there need a little bit of a protected phase to get some traffic off of West Water and off of Water Street, so they're not in conflict as they are right now. So if that's something that hasn't already been designed for that TIP project, if you could just continue to look at that. I know we've talked about it before at other TAC meetings, but even a brief protected phase will help traffic off of West Water Street and eliminate some conflicts there. It's just kind of a big jumble of cars and no one knows who's going first, and I think that would definitely help. But thank you.
I'll definitely make sure that the consultant's aware.
Thank you. And thank you, Kathleen. Anybody else for public engagement? Last call for public engagement. Okay, item number 6, just a brief update on the traffic calming application for Pine Street. The group that presented, I believe at one of our last meetings, did obtain the necessary signatures for us to continue on with that process. So, Bill, maybe we can talk a little bit more offline about how we're going to obtain that data there and conduct data collection. But I think we'll be advancing that to the data collection part. And there were a few other things I think you wanted to look at from an engineering perspective, so we can talk a little bit more about that. But they are moving forward with that application. So.
Good. Yeah. So we got pricing, and we're looking at site distance as well. So that'll be moving forward. I'll sign that contract today.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you. Item number 7, we have some proposed residential developments and updates to other proposals that have come before TAC in the past. The first is item 7A, 154 and 158 Salem Street. I'll be looking at site plan review and traffic impact assessment for proposed, Brian, I think it's a 13-unit complex there. We have Brian McGrail with us tonight.
If I may, Mr. Chair. Thank you. For the record, Attorney Brian McGrail representing the applicant on this development, L&L Development LLC, and another related entity, which is this project is a combination of 154 and 158 Salem Street. And before I get going, I'd like to introduce Scott Thornton, who is our traffic consultant with Vanessa. Rich Williams from Williams and Sparagus is our site civil engineer. Rich is here today also to answer any questions that you might have. And one of the principals, Nick Leo from L&L, is here also. As I mentioned, this involves 154 and 158 Salem Street. It's a proposal that is before the Planning Board and before the Board of Appeals, in that this development involves both boards. And if I may share my screen, you'll see why both boards are involved. This shows the layout on Salem Street. Currently, this is comprised of 2 properties. Our property, I'm going to kind of highlight it, goes all the way along Salem Street, goes way back. It's about 65,000 square feet and comes back. So we've combined 2 properties. 154 Salem Street is a large vacant lot. 158 currently has a 2-family dwelling on it, which is right in this area here. You can see that existing dwelling. The reason it involves both boards is there's an aspect of this development, which is a subdivision roadway that we're putting in. It's labeled as Road A, and we're creating 4 lots off of the Road A. That road has to be approved by the planning board as a subdivision. And what we're also proposing before the zoning board of appeals is an attached dwelling complex on lot 3 of the subdivision. So I'm going to share a different screen, which will probably be a little bit of a clearer layout.
Brian, if I could interrupt you real quick, I do see Joe
Sure.
Comp he wasn't here when I called the attendance item, so Joe is with us.
Okay, thank you. So this is our landscape plan that goes with our filings, which, but it's more of a, I guess, a friendlier version for your committee to look at. As I mentioned, this is Road A coming in. You can see this is Lot 1, which the two-family dwelling will either be rebuilt or rehabilitated. We're getting rid of the curb cut on Salem Street, which currently serves that lot. It will now come off of Road A. Another two-family dwelling over here, single-family dwelling, and then 13 townhouse units on Lot 3. So you've got Lot 1, 2, 3, and Lot 4. It's a unique property. It's a split zoning district. It has aspects which are single residence, general residence, and where the attached dwelling complex is going to be is in the industrial district. That requires a special permit from the zoning board of appeals, and that's why the ZBA has jurisdiction on this as well. This project is somewhat unique for the town. I think the town is used to seeing, multifamily garden or mid-rise apartment buildings. We had talked about that option for this site. It's a very large site, and this lot could actually accommodate up to 53 units if it was a mid-rise or a garden building. My client thought it would be more appropriate and kind of a different product and more appropriate for the area to do a townhouse project, because the way the topography is on this land, you're virtually not even going to know it's here from Salem Street. And certainly from the Traffic Advisory Committee perspective, it will have much less impact traffic-wise with the less density that is proposed by the attached dwelling complex. We're proposing, as I've mentioned, 13 units. And I think it's important to note from a town perspective that under our inclusionary zoning, 2 of these units will be affordable. Again, this is somewhat of a unique product for affordable units because they're very similar to single-family dwellings, being townhome type development, and they'll have 3 bedrooms, which provides more of a family-friendly atmosphere for those 2 affordable units. We've had Vanessa look at this in detail, and from your perspective, I just wanted to kind of lay out what's being proposed here. And if I may, I'm going to hand it over to Scott to go over the traffic aspects of this, which are, I'm sure your main concern is the Traffic Advisory Committee.
Okay, perfect.
Thanks, Brian. Lieutenant, nice to see you, members of the committee. Scott Thornton with Vanessa and Associates. If I could share my screen, just have a couple slides to go over. Okay. Can you see the traffic assessment summary slide? Great, thank you. So as Brian mentioned, we did a traffic assessment really focusing in on the aspects of Salem Street and the development, trip generation, and site distance. We did traffic counts out there in March for a 48-hour period, collected speeds and traffic volumes on Salem Street. What we observed was that the 85th percentile speeds on Salem Street were below the 30-mile-per-hour posted speed limit in both directions. I think it was 26 miles per hour eastbound and 29 miles per hour westbound. We also looked at the segment of Salem Street in the proximity of the proposed roadway for crashes, and found that there were no vehicle crashes on Salem Street in that area between 2017 and 2021, which is the most recent 5-year period available. In terms of trip generation, again, not a big traffic generator, expected to generate 9 trips in the morning, 11 trips in the evening, in the peak hours. So that's roughly split between entering and exiting traffic. It's equivalent to about one additional vehicle on Salem Street every 5 to 7 minutes during the morning and the evening peak hours, and less throughout the course of the day. What we observed with the site distance measurements was that the proposed roadway location meets the AASHTO recommended distances for stopping site distance and intersection site distance based on the posted speed limit rather than the 85th percentile speeds. And this next slide just shows what we're looking at for the site distance in either direction. We've got the site distance triangle looking 14.5 feet back from the travel way, and we've got a little over 200 feet to the west, about 206 feet, and then to the east we've got about 251 feet. So we were confident that the intersection meets the intersection site distance requirements for AASHTO and for the town. And that's really all I have for traffic. I'll turn it back over to you, Brian.
Scott, did you, on the site distance, did you do some recalculations on that?
Yeah, and so we did look at site distance along Salem Street as well, and it's looking like we've got about 300 feet, possibly a little more in either direction, and we're continuing to review that with the calculations in the AutoCAD system, survey data that we have. So I'll turn it back over to you.
Yeah, so I think what Scott is saying is actually the site distance is better than what's actually reflected in the report after re-looking at it. But in any event, Mr. Chair, I think it's a pretty straightforward project with minimal impact, as Scott said, and we're happy to answer any questions or entertain any comments that the committee has.
Okay, perfect. Matt, what do you have for us?
Yeah, I have no issues with the trip generation. Everything looks good to me. Not a huge traffic generator, so that's where I usually pivot to safety and site distance. When I reviewed the memo, I thought the site distance section was a little bit overly conservative. I think, not using the actual speed measurements is a little bit conservative, and the sight lines that are drawn on the plan, I think, could be a little bit more, that could be lengthened a little bit. So I'd like to see Scott's recalculations and maybe just a revision to the graphic. I think, in the interest of maximizing that sight line to the west, when you plot your new calculation, Scott, if you could just see where that lands on the landscaping plan and make any adjustments to the landscaping accordingly. I think that sight line is really important. So I think modifications to the landscaping shouldn't be a big deal.
That's fine. We can do that.
Bill, what do you have for us?
Let me get off mute. No comments. Matt covered all my concerns.
Dan and Lois.
All set.
Joe Conway.
Good for right now.
John Connors.
I didn't see any concerns.
All right, so Scott, one concern that I have, we recently started to evaluate this new software that the town might go to, and I got to say it's incredibly accurate. We just had a traffic study that the town paid for Merriam Street for a traffic calming application, and I kind of compared the speed data from Urban SDK is the name of the company with what we received from the actual, old school tube traffic study that we had. And my concern is having the most up-to-date and accurate speed counts that we can get, especially when we're considering sightline distances. And I know that Salem Street, especially now that it's paved, but even before, the roadway really deteriorated and people, kind of avoided it. We got a lot of speeding complaints on Salem Street. Speed trailer have been out there quite a bit, directed patrols, the whole 9 yards. So I'm going to share my screen. This is again, this is 1 month of, and there could be a number of explanations for this, but it is a little bit more consistent with the complaints that at least I get. So it's something that I just would like you to kind of take a look at and maybe tell the committee how these 85th percentile speeds, if they are true, how that would impact the sight line distances there. So, for the segment in between Toby and Nablus, it's showing the 85th percentile speed at 35 miles an hour. The average speed of 31. A little bit before we have 36. A little bit on the other side we have, depending on where you are, 35 and 35 with an average speed of 32 just before Harrison Lane. So if these more current speeds are more accurate, what would a 35 mile an hour 85th percentile speed mean for the sightline distance? And I don't dislike the project. I think it's a pretty low impact in terms of traffic. I like the design. I like that it's not 50 units. I think that would be an issue. Parking isn't really a concern of mine. But sightline distances definitely are. It's something that we're concerned about a lot. And we're kind of vetting this new system, and I just would like to know if that more current data set is accurate. What would that do for those? And I don't mean to put you on the spot. If this is something that, Scott, you need to kind of come back at the next meeting with, just something to consider how that would adjust it, and if there's anything you can do to kind of confirm or dispel this data set that we have. But I think it would be a disservice, since we have access to it right now, to not kind of vet what our developers present to us off this system here, because we have a lot of complaints in town with development that, from the public's perception, the traffic impact assessments are way off from what they see. And up until recently, we haven't had our own data set to either confirm or refute that. So I'll give it to you, and if you need some time to come up with some measurements, that's fine. But just, it's a concern of mine.
Yeah, appreciate the question. In terms of, I think I can give some preliminary insights, and then maybe we can have a discussion offline, because I'm not familiar with this system, and if it's something like a streetlight data package which records speeds or volumes based on cell phone signals and GPS pinging, those systems have I think there's a big variability factor that needs to be accounted for with that information. I can tell you that if in fact, if in fact the speeds turned out to be 35 miles per hour for the 85th percentile, then that's a requirement of 250 feet for a sight distance rather than the 200 with 30 miles an hour. But yeah, I'd like to dig into that a little more and get back to you with a more informed answer.
Okay. No, I appreciate that. Like I said, the roadway was repaved. Joe Conway or Bill, do you remember exactly when that was completed?
It would have been towards the summer this year. So if your count, I think your counts were done prior to the paving. So obviously, folks, if the road wasn't in great shape before. Plus, we also had water work on it. So there's a bunch of stuff that we were doing depending on when you did it. So I mean, I think it's a good point that Joe's bringing up. I'd say maybe it might make sense to do an updated count, just so we understand what that is. And then, update your stop and sight and intersection sight distance based on that. I mean, Matt already provided some comments that he wanted you to recalculate anyway. So maybe we just kind of do a quick little redo. the data that we've received from the company that is providing the service to the town, I mean, they have an 80% or 85% accuracy component, and we've done 4 different studies over the course of the last few years, and they hit the data was 100% accurate to what we had for our data. So, we're thinking this is very accurate. So, keep in mind, we also get like historic data too, so we can see trends. So it's not just a snapshot from like today, like you're doing with your traffic counts too. So it's a longer data set. So it's basically real-time data, basically constantly we would have available to us. So it's, we're going to be using this going forward on these meetings consistently. So just to give you a heads up on all that.
Okay. No, that's good to know. And the company was Urban SDK?
Correct. Yep.
Okay, I'll look into it. Yeah.
Excellent. We had Chief Scory, and then I'll go back to Matt Cayley. Chief, good morning.
Hey, good morning. Everyone's touched on what I wanted to say. The dates, and I'm not looking to make more work for Scott, but the dates of the traffic study are flawed. That road was in horrible condition. I think if you were to do the study now that it's been repaved, you'll find that both the volume and the speeds have increased significantly.
All right, thank you, Chief. Matt, back to you.
Thanks, Joe. Scott, I sat in on the presentation from Urban SDK. It is similar to, Streetlight, Replica, those other data sources that you're probably familiar with, but they have a different twist on it. But it is very technical, and the data they provided was pretty impressive. One question I have for you is, I saw you had Accurate Counts do your data collection. Do they use radar or speed or tubes for their speed studies? Do you know?
They use both. I'd have to check to see what they used in this case.
Yeah, and I think it sounds like we want to see another data point on that anyway. But I was just curious what they might have used in this case.
Yeah, I mean they use both. I mean those guys. They swear by the tubes. But so
I like the radar better these days.
kind of old school. No, I know. But
I think I'm gonna say, Scott, that I'd prefer the radar and not to put some holes into my brand new road. So
well, they tape it down now, Bill. They're not putting holes on it.
All right.
But still, no, all good points. I know the pavement was kind of rough when we were out there. So I don't disagree with what's being said. All I have is the data that I have. So and so I'm relying on that. But yeah, I mean, I'll dig into the other company information, and we'll talk to the client and see if we can come back next time with some additional information.
Perfect. I do like the project though itself. I think my concern is the speeds and the sight lines, but in terms of parking, in terms of the design, trip generation, it's a well thought out plan. I do like it. Attorney McGrill.
Yeah, I just had a question and clarification. So the SDK, if that's the name of the company, Mr. Chair, when's that information? When was that information? What period of time was that obtained from?
Yep. So they gave us a data set preliminarily for the month of August of 2024.
So that would be after the paving was done, right?
Yep.
Yes, correct.
Yeah. So and you had some speeds there, and I think what Scott had said, based on his re-review of the site distances, that even based on that data of SDK, we would be well in compliance. Is that right, Scott?
Yeah, it's a couple different criteria for site distance. I'd like to take the time to go through it and make sure we're on the same page with that. I believe we do have additional site distance along Salem Street beyond what was calculated for the memo. Matt picked up on it. We did have a conservative review of that. One thing, I don't know, Lieutenant, if it's possible for you to pull data from that from Urban SDK for the end of March for that, just to see how that compares with the data that we collected. It might be, you know, if it shows a higher reading, or if it shows much variation, then, you know, that's something that we just need to consider moving forward.
Sure, and we will just, you know, we're in the infancy stages with this this program, so I'll get in touch with them and see if we can do that for at least this development. But moving forward, we'll have access to at least the previous 13 months at all times, and then going forward, we'll, you know, we'll have it from that point forward. So, you know, if we're on with them for 5 years, we'll have 5 years of data plus the previous 13 months from when we actually signed on with them.
So it sounds like,
good.
we want to show a comparison between Scott's new data and the Urban SDK data.
I think
Sounds like.
I think it's a
Yeah, thank you for that clarification. That makes sense on my end. And I appreciate the explanation on that. So it seems to me, Mr. Chair, we have a little bit of homework to do and probably submit a revised, you know, report after Scott has a chance to look at that for Matt to look at and the committee as a whole, and then we'll circle back. Does that make sense?
That would be great. Look forward to it.
Excellent.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the time.
All right, thank you. Any members of the public have any questions or comments on that agenda item before we move on? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to item 7B, 32 Nahan Street, an update there from the development team. Good morning, Paul.
Morning, Lieutenant Anderson. How are you?
Well, thanks. How are you?
Good, thank you. I will turn it right over to Scott and he can present the changes that we've made to the plans addressing some of the concerns that were previously raised by this committee.
Thank you, Paul. Lieutenant Scott Thornton with Vanessa Associates. Could I share my screen?
Certainly can. You're a busy man this morning. Scott.
Okay, just a few slides. I think the TAC is aware that the project has been downsized again to 22 units. I think the more dramatic change is that the site plan has been revised to flip the driveway and the building from the initial layout, with the intention of moving the driveway further away from Main Street and those queues that have been discussed and brought up, extending back from Main Street. And at this point, we're really just looking for some initial feedback from TAC to take to the zoning board. Just want to see, you know, what kind of get reactions from TAC at this point.
Okay.
This is the revised site plan. They're looking at 38 resident spaces, 2 delivery spaces in this area, 3 visitor spaces. Given the number of units, it's about a 1.9 parking space per unit ratio. And, you know, again, similar, just a mirrored image of what was shown previously or provided previously. In terms of the trip generation, you know, we started with 32 units for the traffic study. All the impacts were based on 32 units, and we didn't really have any significant effects due to the project. Now that we're looking at 22 units, the trip generation has decreased further. So again, we're looking at 8 units, I'm sorry, 8 trips for the morning peak hour, 9 trips for the evening peak hour, based on a multifamily apartment building. So that's a decrease of 4 and 3 trips, or about so a pretty substantial decrease from what was analyzed in the traffic study. Downsizing it to 22 units is a 31% reduction from what was previously analyzed. And, you know, I think that's it. I'll turn it back over to you, Paul, but I think that's Lieutenant, that's really what we're looking for, is just some feedback on this concept.
And I have nothing further to present, Mr. Chairman, so we're happy to answer any questions that the committee has.
Okay, and I'll turn it over to the committee in a second, but I do have to say this is, I mean, I like the reduction. The revised site plan is a lot more palatable. I do like the 3 visitor spaces. I mean, we heard from Paul DeFranza from Rear Walton a little while ago, and that's I'm not making it up when I tell the developers that, you know, traffic and parking has an impact on abutters, especially on a street where there is no available on-street parking, and that's an example of that, you know, we kind of have to go off of what our residents think, and that's why we try to maximize visitor and delivery spaces to prevent issues from, you know, adjacent side streets that may have a narrow roadway width, and you know, having 1 or 2 cars might be fine for a fire truck to navigate, but you know, on those days where, you know, there's a lot of visitors, or you know, it's a busy day there, there's more than the occasional couple that an ambulance or a fire truck can more easily traverse that side street. So I do like that there's at least 5 spaces that are dedicated to that kind of overflow and visitor parking, which is a help. You know, what I still don't like, though, as much as I appreciate the reduction in size, the alterations to the site plan, I definitely like this more, no doubt. It's just the location. The location is tough. It's not the development itself. I can appreciate what the development team has presented. It's I know it's quite a bit of change and potential reduction in unit count, but it's just in a tough area. On Street it's a tough road to put in a multifamily, especially in this section where, you know, the trip generation isn't, you know, anything remarkable. You don't look at the numbers and say, oh my God, we couldn't possibly have 8 more cars on the Hunt Street. But I think in that area where Main and the Hunt and North Ave in what we call the junction, you know, a lot of times it's at a level of service of D, and adding 8 to 10 trips to that intersection it's just making something bad even worse. So I do like this better. It's a lot more palatable. There's a lot of things that I like about it. I'm just not crazy about the location. I think the location is unfortunate. It's not the development itself or what your team has worked on to try to make some meaningful adjustments. I just don't like where it's located, but those are my initial thoughts on it. Matt Keeley, what do you have for us?
Similar to you, Joe, I like the changes. I like the flipping of the driveway and the reduced unit count. One question I had was, is the mailroom or package room in the back of the building? We just want to make sure that it's, you know, that the front door isn't convenient for an Amazon driver to just pull up on the sidewalk. So
Yeah.
I thought it was in the previous plan, so I just want to make sure that's the same with this one.
I think it is. I'll have to double check.
Yeah, because that will just go to the effectiveness of those delivery spaces. Yeah. So from a traffic and parking standpoint, I don't have many issues. I like the changes to the plan. So I'd really have to defer to police and fire on the public safety aspects and their opinions on that.
Just to clarify, I think Peter Sandors is on the Zoom, so if he could answer the question, that would be great.
Yes, Peter Sandors. The delivery room is in the back of the building, as you said.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Bill, what do you have
My
for us?
question was going to be on the location of the package room, so that's
Okay.
We're on the same page today, Bill.
Yep. I like that we're on the same mindset. That's great.
Dan and Lois.
Yeah, I see the 2 handicap spots, and beside it is those EV charging stations.
Scott or Peter.
Sorry, I'm on mute. Yes, those are EV spaces.
Because I thought the front wanted them closer to the street.
I can, yeah, it's unfortunate that, well, we can look into moving them. I don't know offhand if there's some specific requirement for them to be site related, if there's a requirement from the site for them to be there, but we can
If
check
you
into
see
that.
a fire truck get maneuvering in to get to the EV station, if there was
Yeah.
a, whereas if they were closer to the street, they could actually park on the street, the fire department, and access the vehicles.
We do
Yeah.
have Chief Sullivan on with us. I'm not sure if he has if he wants to weigh in on it, but Chief, do you have anything for us?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I would be very reluctant. We're gonna do whatever we can to not drive into that parking lot, which means it's most likely gonna be parked out front, causing a traffic obstacle. We can probably get a line around to the back of the building. I can't read the dimensions of the building, but I'd be very reluctant. Something would have to be on fire for us to get into that parking lot and commit to going in there. So it's not undoable to have the charging stations there. It would make things a little bit more time consuming, but yeah, we're not, I just don't see us going in there and unless we have to.
Joe Conway, do you have anything for us?
No, sir. Thank you.
All right, John Connors.
Hi, I was just curious, we've been talking about the traffic backing up and queuing on Nahant Street, and I was just curious as to trying to visualize it exactly how far the project is from the intersection of Main Street, and if it's expected that traffic would be queued up past the driveway for the project.
Yeah, so we're about I think we're about 500 or so feet from the Main Street intersection. And on an average, we look at the average and the 95th percentile queues, and the 95th percentile queue is the really what we consider to be the worst case. And mathematically it would be, you know, the worst queue during 3 minutes out of the peak hour. And during the average queue, we don't have any, or the average condition, there's the queue would go about halfway back to the driveway. Under the 95th percentile queue conditions where the queue would stop short of the site during the morning peak hour. In the evening peak hour, it would get close to this driveway location, but it basically would go to about the middle of the building, and wouldn't actually extend back to the driveway.
So Scott, if I can clarify, but by flipping the driveway over, we're actually eliminating it being blocked at any point in time by the
Yes.
queues?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from members of TAC? All right, I will turn it over to public comment. If you could raise your hand, and I will ask you to unmute. Karen McMaster, good morning.
Hi, good morning. Karen McMaster, 25 Nahant Street. That is not true at all. Even though you move the driveway, the traffic extends all the way back to almost where the old Franklin School building is, the Franklin. So that is 100% wrong. And that's on a daily basis. So you're going to have people trying to enter and exit out of there, and a good portion of 3 hours at least a day, that driveway is going to be blocked. So you're going to have Amazon trucks that are absolutely not going to go all the way to the back. They're going to pull on the sidewalk, or they're going to deliver as fast as they can. So I appreciate the downsize. All in all, the building just does not belong in our neighborhood. It doesn't fit anything. Traffic, as you see, listening to everybody in the town, is overwhelming as it is. Adding any more to anything else is just, it's just not feasible. So I'm sorry, but I do not agree with your data at all. I see it all the time that the traffic's gonna extend so far back from where that building is. So, that's it. The same things I've said over and over. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next we have Kyla. Good morning.
Good morning, Kyla McKay Smith, 40 Nahant Street. I'm the abutter on the right who, with this proposed switch to the plan now, this proposed driveway would be right next to our driveway. And Karen is absolutely right. It is multiple times a day that the queue backs up past our driveway, which means that it would still, in fact, cover this proposed driveway. No, it's not stopped traffic for minutes at a time, but until the queue starts moving, it is absolutely blocked multiple times a day when I walk my kid to school, whether it's before 7 for early jazz band practice or at 7:30, there are cars stopped past our house. Same thing when I was coming home on Wednesday evening at a little before 6. It is absolutely covered multiple times a day. There was another car accident in front of our house in the last couple of weeks. I couldn't see the cars stopped, but there are pieces of car in the roadway, maybe somebody's mirror. That's the 4th accident in front of our house in the 3 years that we have lived here. Again, I appreciate the downsizing of the project, but there's so much traffic and people driving recklessly. And even an additional 8 or 9 cars going in or out in the morning or the evening, it will make a difference and it will be more of a problem. So thank you to the committee.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public? Last call for public comment. All right, Paul, I'll turn it back over to you.
Just looking for the Traffic Advisory Committee to get back to the Board of Appeals with their review of the change plans and sort of whatever else is of concern. And then we'll take it up with the Board of Appeals next week.
Bill, what are your thoughts? I mean, we've already provided the Board of Appeals with kind of our stance on this. I think at this point, based on the changes, it's really going to be up to them. I mean, a lot of the concerns are still there, although they've alleviated some of them. And I don't think my position has changed, although I mean, I can share my screen just for a quick second, just to, as I'm listening to the 2 residents speak. We showed this a little while ago. I just happened to go on to
yeah, I did the same thing. Yeah,
and it's right in front of number 40. So it's I don't think that the residents are being untruthful, and I don't think that Scott is presenting something that's intentionally deceptive. It's just sometimes this is what we're here for, a traffic advisor, right? We're looking at the data that's presented, and we're looking at what our experience is, and listening to our residents, and trying to combine all that and give the zoning board of appeals the most accurate opinion that we can. And I think at this point, my opinion would be that our position hasn't changed, although this site plan and the adjustments it's the most palatable version that's been presented to us. And if they have anything else for us to review or consider moving forward, they can send it to us. We'll be glad.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely an improvement from what we had. I mean, I think that's important, right? They have more parking on site. They have a reduced, density. All those things are good. Some of the comments I didn't like was the overhang originally. That was a big thing for me because I didn't think it was really, it was going to be difficult to actually maneuver in and out. All of those are better. It's easier, I think, for the delivery trucks too. So all those are, in my mind, positives. But ultimately, the queue is past this driveway. That's not changing. I don't think there's anything that the developer could do to change that. I mean, that's an underlying condition. They do have rights to do stuff with their lots. I mean, that is they have an ability to do this, and we understand it's a 40B. Realistically, if this was appealed, they'd probably win the appeal. So I think they've done everything they can. They've definitely been working with the town, which is definitely a positive in my mind. So, you know, whether we want to write something a little differently and just say, you know, this is definitely better than what we saw. But, you know, there still is a potential impact, but, you know, does it get to the point where to a level that they should deny the project? I mean, I don't think we're recommending that. We don't typically do that anyway. So, you know, I'm not sure how we would write the letter, you know, or what we would provide for comments, you know.
Yeah, we present our concerns, and it's up to them to do what they do on their end. And I think that we should draft a memo, Matt, if you're comfortable with that, you know, reflecting that the positives that Bill and everybody just mentioned, you know, reiterating the concerns that we still have with the traffic queuing, with the calls for service for the fire department and ambulance, that, you know, they're going to be parked out on Nahant Street. We've heard that, you know, many times with developments on Nahant Street, that, you know, they're not gonna park within the site. So it's going to cause, you know, public safety concern as far as having to direct traffic and more queuing and more backups, and tie up our police unnecessarily because of the location. The location is just unfortunate. It's not the changes to the site or you know, what they've done. They've made some considerable changes, and I like them, but I just don't like the location. So I think it's up to the ZBA to determine you know, the overall impacts based on our recommendations and suggestions, and whatever they see you know, that comes before their board.
I agree.
All right, so Paul, we're gonna draft a memo reflecting that. We're gonna send it to the ZBA, and if they need anything more from us, we'll be glad to meet again.
Shannon, thank you very much. Have a good weekend.
All right, you too. Take care.
Thank you.
All right, item number 7C, 0, 119, 127, and 135 Nahant Street. We have Attorney Panos. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Doing well, thank you. How are you?
Excellent. I'm well, thanks. For the record, my name is Jason Panos, representing the residences at Nahant LLC, the applicant in the instant matter. I'm joined by Scott Cameron from the Moore and Cameron Group, and you guessed it, Scott Thornton from Vanessa and Associates. I'm going to turn it over to them for technical review, but and we thank you for your your late ad on this agenda of the proposed changes, which I think you will agree are significant from the last proposed plan you commented on. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Scott Cameron. Before I do, most of these changes you're going to see were driven by the comments from the last comments from TAC, from the last technical back and forth, the memoranda. And they're designed to address each and every one of the TAC concerns that you had, and they are significant. So with that, if I can turn it over to Scott Cameron to give a brief overview of what the revised concept plan looks like, and then to Scott Thornton, who will give your technical review.
Okay, perfect. Scott, do you need to share your screen, or?
Yes, please, if I could.
Sure.
Good morning, everyone. For the record, Scott Cameron with the Moore and Cameron Group, 66 Elm Street in Danvers, Massachusetts. The concept plan. So I'll try to be brief, as you know. I know we got a lot on your plate today, but since we last met, there's been quite a bit of work going on. You know, not just updating plans and concepts, but behind the scenes, working through ways we can address the concerns raised by your committee, as well as, you know, other boards in the public. So what you're looking at is, it's still in a concept phase. We haven't taken this to a full technical drawing set yet. And you know, in August, September, we had we had meetings with some of the town staff, Bill Renault, on a technical basis. He and I had met to go through some of the engineering aspects of this. We had a subcommittee meeting on October 18th with zoning board members. And where we're at currently is a significantly different project plan than what you'd seen before. We've consolidated this to a single entrance driveway, mainly to address the sightline concerns on the Hunt Street. And Scott can talk to you a little bit about that. The circulation around the building has been widened to two-way 24-foot wide aisles around the perimeter of the project, and this will accommodate emergency apparatus without the need to back around. We've eliminated kind of the dead end condition that was on the prior plan, if you recall, on the southwest corner of the property, where we went from two-way to one-way. We've moved solid waste disposal outside of the building footprint, which will make access by the pickup trucks easier than where it had been in the interior of the building before. We've stepped the building back from Nahant Street, so now it's sitting over 70 feet away from the right-of-way line, closer to 80 feet away from the actual travel lane. It's tucked behind all the homes along the frontage. We've increased open space, but public pedestrian circulation around the property has improved now with amenity areas, three really, through the core of the site. And most notably, we've decreased the density by 20% from 100 units down to 80. And what does this translate to? We are currently sitting at a parking ratio of 1.5 to 1 on parking spaces to units. The unit ratios have changed a little bit, so they're focused a little bit more on the smaller size units. So we're looking at, still the 8 3-bedrooms for the 10% requirement, 14 2-beds, 31 beds, and 28 studios. So the smaller unit size would also come with typically less demand for on-site parking, although we look them all same regardless. And then just as another note, the height of the building was reduced from 5 stories down to 4 stories. So a lot of changes, and I just want to keep in mind, this is still a concept plan. We were hoping this morning to get some feedback from you on the changes we've made, from the traffic technical public safety concerns that have been previously raised and what we've done here to address those. There will be a full technical package that would come after this. And we do plan to go before the subcommittee again next week, and then hopefully be presenting this to the zoning board at their next meeting in a little more detail. So with that, I'll turn it over to Scott Thornton.
Okay, thanks, Scott. For the record, Scott Thornton with Vanessa and Associates. Got another presentation. Okay, and the intent here, Lieutenant and members of the TAC, is just to go through and provide responses to the last comments that came from TEC in their August 14th memo on the project. We had previously responded to those with our August 30th letter, but given the changes to the site and the proposed conditions, how dramatically they've changed, it warrants a new set of responses to these items. So briefly, about 7 different issue areas ranging from delivery, visitor parking to on-site circulation. And I'll just go through those briefly in the interest of time. There was concern about how delivery trucks would get through the site and where visitors would park. As Scott Cameron mentioned, the site has between 120 and 122 spaces for residents, number of spaces for delivery vehicles and visitors. The exact numbers of these and the use of these spaces will be identified with increasing design development. But as Scott mentioned, the parking ratio currently stands at about 1.5 spaces per unit with two-way circulation throughout the site. So we think that that's going to minimize any potential conditions of conflicts for vehicles traveling through the site. As far as dedication of parking spaces on site, there was concern, and I think Scott alluded to it with a dead end towards the south of the site of the previous plan, where the orientation or configuration of the access changed from one-way to two-way. The site has been redesigned to permit two-way circulation. We're still thinking that the garage spaces will be assigned, so we don't have folks pulling in looking for parking there unless they know that they have spaces that have been reserved for their use. But the other thing is all spaces are now 90 degrees, so that permits vehicles coming from either direction to choose a spot, whether it's counterclockwise or clockwise rotation on site. As it relates to the site distance coordination with the landscaping design, again, the relocation of or the consolidation of the driveways into one that's centrally located really maximizes the site distance for vehicles approaching the site from the east. And the landscape plan, we had revised it previously based on the need to maximize site distance with the previous configuration, but obviously we would continue to do that with increasing design development for this site plan as well. The site distance now exceeds the recommended values for SSD and ISD based on the speed limit of 30 miles per hour that's shown on this plan. And I know that was a concern that Matt Keeley had raised about vehicles traveling at the speed limit with the previous design with the driveway in this location. Site distance was limited, but in this case, shifting that driveway further west has improved the site distance triangle. So now we're looking at 229 feet of site distance where 200 feet was recommended. It's not really been an issue for the west, looking to the west, or for vehicles approaching from the west. But again, in this central location, this really improves the site distance that's available to the driveway. There was some comments about the perfect fit parking application. Again, I think it's good data. It shows a parking ratio or demand ratio of 0.75 spaces per unit. Our parking ratio with this plan is 1.5 spaces per unit, so effectively double what had been indicated in the perfect fit parking. So we don't think that there's going to be any issues with the sufficiency of parking for the project. Again, this other issue about the neighborhood no parking signs, we think that the increased number of or heightened parking ratio is going to just serve to encourage our residents and visitors to park on site. There is also a drop-off area that's located along the east side of the site, away from the driveway with Nahant Street. So we think that discourages the use of cars pulling over on Nahant Street to let people in or to pick people up. And that's a proposed feature of the plan. Again, there were some issues about circulation with whether it's emergency vehicles or trash pickup vehicles or delivery vehicles. The two-way circulation will allow emergency vehicles and others to circulate the site in either direction. We've sized the driveway radii to accommodate the fire trucks as the plan continues to to increase in design detail. We'll take a look at the vehicle circulation on site for those other types of vehicles to make sure that they can still circulate through the site. And then there were some concerns about the Nahant Street crosswalk. I think that the TAC memo acknowledged that RRFB at that crosswalk of Nahant Street near Traverse Street would be an improvement or an enhancement. And the applicant is still committed to this improvement. So that's sort of the a very quick. Apologize for the brevity, but it's getting late. So that's the traffic assessment. I'll turn it back over to Jason. Thank you.
One thing to add, and thank you for that thorough presentation, Scott. But one thing to add that I think bears emphasizing, access to the building, which was one of the fire chief's concerns initially, is maintained through all corners of the building. In other words, a fire truck can circulate throughout the site. And I think you might recall at one of the TAC meetings, I think it was the deputy chief who showed up and commented positively that they hardly ever see that. Well, that aspect is maintained, if not better, because of the increased access and circulation throughout the site. But if you guys have any questions, we're happy to entertain them.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Scott. That was a hat trick. And, so you did well. You did well. There's definitely positives about the changes here. I feel the same way as I do about 32. It's a shame it's on Nahant Street. Nahant Street just doesn't support this type of development, but I do like a lot of the adjustments. One more notably is the centralized driveway location, which Bill Renault kind of touched upon a while back, to maintain that, to have the best possible visibility. I think that's an improvement. The setback of 70 feet or whatever it was from the roadway, I think helps us in a lot of ways. It deters the Amazon driver from parking there and then having to make a 70 to 80 foot trek to drop off packages. And the same can be said with dropping off, residents there with a dedicated drop off area. 1.5 approximate parking spaces per unit is definitely a help. And the two-way traffic circulation is definitely an improvement. We had there was some conflict points toward the rear of the site that made no sense, and it didn't make any sense from a circulation standpoint, and there was some potential conflict there. And then with the two driveways, we had concern that people might be exiting out the wrong driveway illegally and then having a worse condition with visibility. So there are improvements. This is probably the more palatable of the versions that we've seen. I would like to see a version with a little bit more detail in terms of measurements, but I feel the same way personally about this as I do 32. A little worse off than 32 though. There's still 80 units here on a roadway in a neighborhood that really isn't suited for 80 units, but it's better and it is an improvement from what we've seen in the past. Bill?
Yeah, I mean, I'll echo what you said. They address a lot of the comments that I had, so that's a positive. The only thing that really jumps out at me still is the 2 visitor spaces for 80 units. That seems absolutely low. So, I mean, there's no chance that you're only going to be using 2 visitor spaces. I think we had 3 for a 22 unit development down the street. I mean, aside from that, that's like my main concern still sticking around, just kind of off the quick review here. But aside from that, you've addressed a lot of my comments that I've highlighted. So, I'm happy on that end at least. I think you're on mute.
Matt, you have any initial thoughts?
Yeah, I definitely like some of the changes. I'd like to take a closer look at the site distance, but it looks like it's significantly improved, which was, as you know, my main concern over the multiple hearings that we've had on this. Scott Thornton, I know you said it multiple times during your presentation, but just to confirm, because I think Scott Cameron's plan may have still had a single arrow going counterclockwise. It's two-way throughout the entire site, correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
it is. And Scott can speak to it, but just in the interests of time to get this on, I think there's the site, there's just some large features or important features like the building layout and the extents of the parking field that are shown on there. But there's some leftover vestiges of the previous plan on there but two-way circulation is
Gotcha.
definitely proposed.
I think the color plan is actually overlaid on the old plan, so that's what you're seeing.
That's probably what I was seeing. Billy, right?
Yeah, that's exactly it. I wanted you to have that comparison so you can see the shadow of the old building. You can see I left some of the parking features from the prior plan on there, so you have that comparison.
Yep. I mean, I would like to see, an actual layout plan with the fire truck turns in there, just to verify for police and fire that they have adequate room to maneuver. That's definitely a positive of the plan. I do have to be candid and just vent a little frustration that if the applicant had the ability to do this plan all along, it's frustrating that it took this long, because we've spent a lot of time reviewing this. These are a lot of things we've been asking for months and months. So I'm glad that they're being incorporated into the plan, but I wish we had seen them sooner.
All right, Dan and Lois.
I kind of agree with Bill with his visitor parking. I live in a condo with 24 units. We have 3 visitors parking spaces. But as long as they got rid of those tandem parking spaces, I'm okay with it.
All right, thank you. Joe Conway, anything for us?
All set. Thank you.
John Connors.
I have nothing to add. Thank you.
Okay. Chief Sullivan, Chief Scory, before I turn it over to members of the public.
I'm very happy with the new site plan. Being able to get around the entire building is huge and not having to back up. Also, the setback off in the Hard Street will allow us to access the roof and so forth without tying up a section of the Hard Street. So it's an improvement. I do agree that we need to verify that fire trucks can in fact get around the building. It looks like they can. Having said that, I still am concerned about the size of the project, and anything we can do to decrease that. You made a substantial reduction in the project already, but whatever you can do to continue that trend would be beneficial. That's it.
Thank you, Chief. Chief Scory.
I think it's nice to see that there's been some effort to make changes, but I still don't see how either one of these projects benefits the town. It's too big for the neighborhood, not the right spot. Doesn't work.
Any other members of TAC before I turn it over to public comment? All right, I'll open it to public comment. If you could raise your hand, and again, state your name and address when I call on you.
Hi, I don't have a hand here, but it's Paula Gardell at 10 Wilson.
We'll take you first since you're handless.
Well, thank you for the changes. Much appreciated. They make a lot of sense. Again, at the end of the day, we have 100 more cars going in and out of Nahant Street, which is basically way too many. Compiled with 32 Nahant Street, the queuing, I agree. I just waited for my turn here. It's too big, and thank you for the builder for finally cooperating with us on some level, but you still need to get the size down. The street itself cannot accommodate the number of units, and that to me is the bottom line. Safe or not, you're still going to have unsafe conditions with 100 cars trying to come out of that driveway. That's it.
Thank you, Paula.
Thank you.
We have Maria Oliveira. Good morning.
Okay, I'm all set. Thank you. I'd like to reiterate some of the points that I mentioned early on. As far as the street is concerned, I'm at 216 Nahant Street, which is down the other end. But now with the high school being done over, we have kids that run this street from the track after school. And I understand it's a two-season sport, so not only will we see them in the fall, but we'll see them in the spring. Lots of parents are walking their kids with baby carriages over to the Woodville. We have the town dump, and I'm hoping that's a mitigating piece of all of this. They're up and down the street all the time, along with Wakefield Municipal Gas and Light, along with a lot of trucks who don't pay attention to the fact that we are a no truck street. And I'm concerned with all these other delivery trucks that will now be up and down the street. And also landscapers and, people, UPS, who don't pull in to the building site and just park halfway on the street and just run in with their packages. Also, the Volk School is going to have 600 more students down the road, and that brings even more traffic on this street. What else do I want to mention? I think about the future as the town begins to grow. And I would hate to have us make a mistake and approve something like this, that down the road we really wish we hadn't because of the size and all of that. And we also have the school buses twice a day for not only the high school, but also for the Volk School up and down this street. So for all those reasons, I really don't think the building is appropriate for this street. So thank you, everyone.
All right, thank you, Marie. Next, we have Karen McMaster. Good morning.
Hi, Karen McMaster, 25 Nahant again. I just feel like we keep repeating ourselves. I'm going to be honest, if we didn't have this Massachusetts statute of 40B, we wouldn't be sitting here right now. Both of these projects, we've talked it over, the street can't handle it. We see everything else being built in our town. Our town can't handle this. Developers are doing what they need to do. They're here to make money. I get it, but it's also destroying where we live. And I'm not saying that word lightly at all. It will destroy, because it can't come down. Once it's up, it's there, and we have to deal with it. And there's going to be tons of problems. You can do your traffic studies. You can say it's going to be this and that. I'm very fortunate. I only have a 2-mile commute to Stoneham. And just to get over the track, sometimes it takes me 15 minutes. The other day, I happened to be in Peabody at a different location, and there was a backup. And I never really understood how bad the traffic was and how people cut through Wakefield. It was insane. That's only going to increase, whether it's Salem Street, Nahant Street. That many more people have to go to Wakefield, whether they live there or they're cutting through. It's just, we can't change our infrastructure. Nahant Street can't add any more sidewalks. We can't make it any wider. I commend all the committees for being as patient and as accommodating. And you know what? I don't care if we win an appeal or not. I still think we need to appeal no matter what. Because that's it. I mean, 80 units, it doesn't fit the neighborhood. It doesn't fit either one of these projects. There's nothing like it. So again, with my frustration, that's what I have to say. And again, I feel like I'm repeating myself, but I guess that's how it goes. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Kathleen next. Good morning, Kathleen.
Morning again, Kathleen Toohey, 8 Wiley Place. While I don't live on Nahant Street, I walk Nahant Street at least 5 days a week. And I'm often walking during the school drop-off times or rush hour. So I see the chaos. Adding 100 cars to Nahant Street just seems irresponsible. But I think what's also not been mentioned in a lot of these meetings is, my understanding is the town is going to be relocating their fueling station to the pit on Nahant Street. So that's going to significantly increase truck traffic and town vehicle traffic to a road that's already quite congested with people that are going, well over the presumed speed limit or the 20 miles an hour that's posted at one end. I know those are old signs, but the signs are still there. And people are going well beyond that. It's pretty scary as a pedestrian even to walk, near Marie Oliveira's house, because that curve, people are going, sometimes close to 40 miles an hour, which is just much too unsafe, and adding more cars is not going to make things safer for residents, for drivers, or for pedestrians. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next, we have Carl. Good morning, Carl.
Hey, good morning. I was listening earlier to Mr. Panos' team talking, giving their summation of what was going on. And I heard certain buzzwords like significant and dramatic and conditions of conflict, but not once did I hear safety. Safety wasn't brought up once the whole time. The whole project is a problem. And it's too bad you can't put both projects into one, because it just adds to the overall silliness of this. To add this many units in, this many cars, I mean, they say 1.5, but who uses 1.5 cars as a basis? There's easily, 70, 80 units, add 2 cars, 160 there per unit, and then visitation plus deliveries, overall maintenance. I can't even put into words what's going to happen if there is ever construction on this, which obviously it looks like it's going to be. The whole street's going to be a mess. I had a child hit by a car coming down the street on a regular day. Never mind adding how many construction vehicles, subcontractors, contractors, everyday deliveries, mail, fire, children. How do we deal with that? And going forward, once it's put up, it doesn't come down, and it's not going to get better in the future. So the town needs to think about that as a town and a community, not just one project here. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Audra. Good morning, Audra.
Good morning. Thank you so much. My name's Audra Bartz. I live at 39 Nahant Street. My property also abuts Franklin. So my driveway and garage is on Franklin Street, which is parallel to Nahant. At the end of Franklin, those of you that know that intersection there, it's not a one-way street, but you are not to drive up Franklin Street towards Main Street from Nahant, right? But people are illegally coming up Franklin now to avoid the light at Main and Nahant because it's so backed up. And so the traffic on Franklin Street, which is this teeny little, you almost can't get 2 cars going down at the same time. And my daughter actually got hit on Franklin because people are now flying up Franklin in the wrong direction to avoid the light. So I want to just reiterate that. I've mentioned it before. I don't know if it's really included in the discussion, but the little side streets around Nahant Street are being flooded as well by people wanting to avoid sitting at the light at Nahant. The traffic is ridiculously backed up. And not even just during school hours, right? School pickup times, outside of school pickup times. So the thought that there's going to be even more traffic than we already have, it blows the mind that anyone could think that it wouldn't be a problem. Obviously, it already is a problem. And so, yes, I just want to add my opposition to these large structures and multiple units being proposed. It's too much. We just can't take more traffic. It already is bad, like beyond. So thank you very much for letting me speak.
Thank you. Paul, you're next.
Thank you very much. I empathize with everyone in this Nahant Street area very much. And my issue was somewhat different than what they're all talking about, except that my issue was also related to the safety issue, but now I'm talking even about the traffic issue. We have several hundred units going in on that, I don't know, quarter-mile stretch of Salem Street from the Linfield line to beyond Montrose Ave with absolutely no parking except for Walton Street. I would implore members of the TAC to contact me, please, And I can give them, take some more time to perhaps tell them what my issues are and then go from there, because there are some areas that are still not even being built, they're just being leveled. But we have several hundred units going in there, and there's no parking, and we also impact Linfield, Salem Street, going toward the Walnut Street lights. So I'd appreciate it if you guys could come to me, and I do empathize completely with the Nahant Street people. I know exactly what they're feeling. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Paul. Anybody else for public comment? Last call for public comment.
I have one I have one more thing. Where am I?
Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, I just have one more thing to add, and that is that I would like to commend Mr. Renault for dialing into this from Abbey Road in England. That was a tremendous thing. Thank you very much, Bill.
You're very welcome.
All right, seeing no other public comment, I'll turn it back over to Attorney Panos.
Thank you. So I have a question. What is your next, when is your next TAC meeting?
We do not have one scheduled as of yet, although we do have the need for one in December, and I need to check with the committee as a whole and see what Friday they're available. December is a tough month. I would say it would be likely the 13th or the 20th, but it's a tough month. So those would be two Fridays that I'm going to propose to the TAC, and we'll let you know.
Excellent. So as both Scotts mentioned, the whole idea of this was to at least bring back preliminary comments to the Zoning Board of Appeals. We're going to be before the whole board on Wednesday, November 20th, where we expect to present this kind of refined concept plan as we work toward a more developed and technical concept plan. I do believe that as not just a concept plan, but a more developed set of plans, which I believe will include revised auto turn. So you will see how not only emergency apparatus vehicles, but Amazon, regular cars, passenger vehicles, and trash trucks will circulate through the site and do their thing. But again, this is a work in progress. We've been working with the town, as Scott Cameron indicated in the background, to kind of get more feedback and come up with what was presented today, and we'll continue to do so. And hopefully we'll at least have a memo that indicates both the concerns and indicates whatever positives you feel result from this revised concept plan for the zoning board to consider.
Okay, fair enough. I would just ask that if you do want to be on our December agenda and you have any technical drawings or anything, any materials, if you could get that to us at least a week or so in advance, so the TAC, that would be great.
Sure. And I think that the board will probably want someone from the TAC at its final closeout hearing, whenever that happens, or before, whenever you're ready to conclude your comments. I didn't notice anyone online from the Zoning Board of Appeals.
I don't believe there was, looking through the participants, but
okay.
All right, well, thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank you, and have a great weekend.
All right, you as well.
Everyone else.
Thank you very much.
Moving on to item number 8, matters not anticipated for the agenda. I wanted to bring up an old concern that was presented to us a while back for the intersection of Chestnut and Prospect Street. It's a 4-way intersection. It's under a stop control on all four sides. Share my screen really quick so we can refresh the TAC's memory. So four-way stop, you have Parker Road, Prospect Street, and Chestnut Street. What we did about, I think it was about a year ago, Joe Conway and his team put up flashing stop signs on the east and westbound approaches. It's where we see the most traffic volume, the most stop sign violations, and they also put a little bit of a ways out some stop ahead warning signs in both directions. And unfortunately, I'm saddened to report that it doesn't seem to have really helped. We have had just in the last month alone, 2 crashes that resulted in injury. One was last night, where 3 people were sent to the hospital. It was a result of preliminarily, the investigation revealed an operator that was heading towards Stoneham westbound disregarded the stop sign and crashed into a vehicle that was turning from Chestnut Street, also heading westbound, like a broadside angle crash. Sent 3 people to the hospital. I don't believe with serious injuries, but injuries nonetheless. About a month or so prior, we had a single car crash that could have very easily resulted in a pedestrian fatality had there been a pedestrian walking their dog on that sidewalk on Chestnut Street, or another vehicle that was making any type of a turning movement. But fortunately, it was just a single car crash, although still resulted in injury, airbag deployment, and the vehicle ultimately came to rest into this tree here on the corner of Chestnut and Prospect. So we've had some of the residents reach out to us over the last couple of years. I believe Bill and Joe, we've made a number of improvements that unfortunately you can actually see the flashing stop sign there. We've made a number of improvements to an area that really is a pretty straightforward 4-way stop, like many others in town, but for some reason the stop signs continue to be disregarded. Even though we've made enhancements to the stop signs, we've added stop ahead warning signs, we've had directed traffic patrols. You know, we see a lot of rolling stops. We've stopped those offenders. We see some, you know, outright complete disregard for the stop signs. But I believe since we've had the flashing stop signs up, we still had in the last approximately year or so, I believe they went up March of 23. So over a year that they've been up, we've still had about 4 crashes in that vicinity. So
didn't we take them down, Joe? I thought we took them down. Didn't we get complaints from the council? Is that not correct?
They're still up, maybe in a different area.
Okay.
They may have been deployed elsewhere. I can't remember. We had them for a little bit, and I think we redeployed them here. But they're up, they're operational. I mean, they're solar powered, so occasionally they do go down, but they were operational last night, to our knowledge, and it still resulted in a crash. So I think this needs to be an agenda item in the future, but I'm open to suggestions. I don't know if, you know, it's a dimly lit area, so maybe we try to get the light department on that meeting and see if they can make any improvements with lighting. I don't know if there's anything engineering you can really do to. I don't even know if squaring up that intersection anymore would really help. To be honest with you, it's a pretty straightforward 4-way intersection. So the only other option would be a traffic signal, and I think people could run the red light just as easily as they could run a flashing stop sign. But what do you guys think on your end?
A couple questions. Has any consideration been given to putting the flashing stop signs on Chestnut as well? So it'll be on all 4?
We could. We haven't considered that, but I can tell you that in my experience, I would say 90% of the stop sign violations come from an east and west direction on Prospect.
And the stop ahead signs, are those just static signs, or I know there's an illuminated stop ahead sign that's out there. I haven't seen it, you know, in practice, but I know it exists. That's something that could be considered to supplement that stop ahead sign.
They're static. There's one there. I believe they at some point put another one up further up Prospect. So I think there's two stop ahead signs. But they're static. Although when you go by it might be the first one, there's a transponder that picks up the signal and causes the stop sign to flash. So they're not constantly flashing. Like probably gets people's attention more because you know, talk about them becoming white noise. So they actually do pick up the vehicle going by at one of those stop ahead signs to activate the stop sign.
And then one more question. Do you have a sense of if the crashes are more frequent at night or during the day?
The ones that seem to result in injury and significance seem to happen at night, which is why I think the light department might need to get involved with lighting.
Yeah, because I mean, I haven't been out there in a while, but just looking at Google, it seems like there's some big trees that may cast shadows where the stop signs are. So I was just curious if there was a daytime issue as well, and if any sort of trimming could improve visibility of the stop signs. But I agree, Joe, it's probably more related to the overhead lighting at night. But I'm just wondering if there's visibility problems during the day as well.
Yeah, I mean, we do see some crashes, but it seems like the severity increases at night.
Okay.
Maybe the move is to go with the lighting. I think that might make sense. Let's try that at least starter, right?
I agree. I'm going to I'll just advance this right over to Paul Redmond at the light department, and if he needs to come before us for any reason to get this moving on his end, then we can present it more formally. And if not, I don't see a reason to waste time and wait for another meeting. So I'll get this over to him. I'll send him a memo on our behalf.
Sounds good.
All right. Anybody have anything else for us?
Nope.
All right then. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. At 10:17, I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody. We'll see you in December, and keep those dates in mind. One of the December.
All right. Happy Thanksgiving.
All right. Thank you. Bye, guys.